When I was 26 years old, I went to a sober house after rehab that got shut down for Medicaid fraud. This is the story of my ultimate rock bottom. I hope it can help someone. So I went into a rehab upstate New York for pills and alcohol. After the rehab, I had to have somewhere to go, so I chose to go to a place called Interline. It was a sober living, and it's basically just where you get your life together and you have accountability. You have a therapist, a counselor, a place to live, but you have to stay sober. You get drug tested. Everything was going very well until a couple months into it, rumors started circulating that they were involved in Medicaid fraud and that they were being investigated for it. Everybody was pretty worried about this and kept asking our counselors. I would go to my counselor and say, hey, listen, what's going on? If this happens, this will be really bad. Can you tell me what's going on? And she would assure me that these were just rumors. So when you're in a sober house, a lot of times in New York, at least, you get assigned a caseworker, and the caseworker basically helps you with, like, if you need an ID, if you need to find housing after the sober house, if you need to find a therapist. This is what the caseworker does. This is their job. My caseworker came to me one day and she said, listen, I'm very concerned for you because there's a huge speculation that they are involved in Medicaid fraud and that they are being investigated and that they could potentially shut down very soon. And I don't think these are just rumors. So I then go to my counselor again and I tell her that my caseworker has now told me that she is worried and that she's hearing it from her higher ups. My therapist got so angry. She calls the caseworker and she's like, how dare you tell my client that we are involved in Medicaid fraud? This is so unprofessional of you. You should be ashamed of yourself. She makes her feel so badly that the caseworker ends up apologizing to me afterwards. Well, it only took a couple of days after that where me and my friends were walking to outpatient, and what do we see? A swarm of FBI agents confiscating computers, phones, laptops, arresting people. We go up to them, we ask them what's going on, and they won't even really talk to us. They just basically tell us to go home and that we need to find somewhere else to live because this is no longer a facility. It's being investigated and shut down for Medicaid fraud, and it's not a rehab anymore. So in one day, we went from having a safe place with accountability to being in a house filled with people who were addicted to DRUGS in the worst part of Queens, which was Jamaica, Queens. We lived right off Guy Brewer. If you know, you know. And the area was absolutely infested with DRUGS. Every corner, I'm talking. There were 3 women's houses in Jamaica, Queens, and 3 men's houses in Brooklyn. Each house held up to about 15 to 18 people. So think about how many lives this ruined. And here's the kicker and the worst part. You're in the state of New York. Tenant laws are absolutely insane. They are completely in favor of the tenant. So if you have been somewhere for 30 days, you've lived there for 30 days, you have full rights to that house. You have more rights than the landlord does. It takes sometimes years to evict people. They have to keep the lights on, the gas on, everything on. So we basically had a free place to live with all the lights still on, the gas still on, and everything, with a bunch of people who were covering DRUGS addicts. And what do you think happened? It was an absolute free-for-all for people who didn't want to be clean anymore. And you have to think about it this way. Even for people who still wanted to be clean, this is not an ideal place to be. It's incredibly dangerous and the temptation is unbelievable. I remember walking home that day and just thinking, I felt like I was in a dream, just thinking, this is not happening. This is not happening. I'm not ready. Like, I still need help. I should have left. I should have done everything I possibly could to get out of there. But temptation completely overtook me. It was the most temptation I had ever felt in my entire life. And I went from being addicted to pills and alcohol to being addicted to H and things that rhyme with smack. Every single person in every single house relapsed except for one. The house became absolutely filthy. There was no food. There was a mattress laying in the middle of the floor in the living room. I remember sleeping on that mattress. I remember going through precipitated withdrawals for the first time on that mattress. I remember H for the first time on that mattress. I remember wanting to not be alive on that mattress. I was in the worst pain I had ever been in my entire life at this point. I had never felt pain like this before. Something about being addicted to those types of DRUGS is so profound. It brings you to a point where I can't even describe it. I remember looking in the mirror and seeing what I looked like and just like breaking down. You know what I remember most and most importantly was pulling myself out of this. Pulling myself together and getting myself to a point where I said, enough is enough, Kaisa. Like, this is it. This is the last time you're doing this. And somehow, and I don't know where, I found the strength, but I found it and I got help. And when I tell you that when you come out of a place that is so profoundly dark and you pull yourself out of it and you become a new person, there is nothing more powerful than that feeling. I remember watching TV and looking at the people on TV, watching newscasters, and just wondering in my head, how can a person just be standing there not sick? How can a person just feel normal? I want to know what that feels like again. I don't remember. I don't remember what it feels like to be okay and healthy and normal. And I wanted it so badly. And when I finally got there, nothing was going to take it away from me. Absolutely nothing. You feel like for the first time you can do absolutely anything in the world. Because if you can pull yourself out of that, you can do anything. You can become anyone. I put myself in another rehab. I put myself in another sober house. I got a job. I saved up all my money. I got a new apartment all on my own. I remember the first time I got approved for an apartment. I remember what that felt like. I put myself through school, and I remember the first time I got an A. And then I remember when I graduated with a 4.0 and I got into Baruch and just sobbing because I couldn't believe where I was and what I had come from, what I had pulled myself out of. And I just looked around and thought, girl, you effing did it. And I want this for everybody. I want everybody to know that you can be at the lowest of your low point. You can genuinely not want to be alive anymore. You can still come out of it. And guess what? It makes it that much sweeter when you make it. Someone who feels pain so profoundly like that feels gratitude so immensely. And I want you to know that. I want you to know that you can feel that way. I want you to know that you can come out of this. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And this is getting really, really long, and there are so many things that I could talk about that are so amazing and what comes afterwards. And I will, and I would love to just drop it in the comments, but it's time is running out, and I am going to leave resources in the comments. If anyone needs help, please use those resources. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you are not good enough to live a better life.